All right, team, let's have a look at question 3 now. So hopefully you either had to go question 1 and 2, and now you're up to 3. If you haven't seen my question 2 video, maybe watch that. But here we go. So question 3, consider the section of activity network shown in the diagram below. So this network is a bit more complex than the other one. What is the duration of activity B? So here again, we're starting at this point. I'm just going to look at activity B, and I can see that starting from this point, and I like to think of it as there's 3 boxes to account for. Okay, so there's the activity starting point, earliest start time for A, earliest start time for D, and this is the earliest start time for B. All right, so if I'm going down the route of B, we can see that it looks like, I don't know what the duration is, but I know that the earliest start time for B is 12. So that may imply that this has a weight of 12 there. So the duration for B is 12 just through forward scanning. Okay, so forward scanning, I'm going to say duration of B is 12. Okay, and similarly, what can I also do? What is the latest start time for activity E? So activity E, which is this one over here, that means the start time, you got to think of it as there's a box here. Okay, there's a box there. So the question is, what is the earliest start time is what you're trying to find there. Now, the only way to kind of figure it out is there's 2 pathways to get to E. You got straight from D, so starting off at 0, and clearly if the starting point here is 9, that implies that it could be 9, right? But then you need to double check as well. Well, what about if I went A and then C? Let's look at the starting time. So starting is 0 to get here. That implies that A is 3. And then from 3, this apparently has a weight of 4. So 3 plus 4 should give me 7, right? But out of the 2, you can see that 9 is a bigger value, which is why this is a 9 right there. So the box there is clearly a 9. So what that implies is that maybe the weight of D is actually truly 9, because clearly up on the top, based on what we can decipher, A had to be 3, and then that means duration of C is 4. There was no way you could have got 9. So that means D here has to be 9. So I'm just going to draw the box again. So this is for box D. And we know we're thinking this is 3. And this is already 4, and we're thinking this is 9. Okay, so when they ask here, what is the latest start time of activity E? You see, you can just simply look at this. Apparently, the latest start time for activity E is going to be 10. All right, and then now moving on to the next one. What is the earliest start time that E can start? Well, earliest start time for E is clearly 9 on this case here. Can you see that? So we're just reading that box that they already given to us. And so I would say start time for E is 9. What is the float time for activity E? Well, the float time, you can see that the earliest start time is 9, and then the latest start time is 10. So they have a 1 hour float time. Or I don't know if it's hours, but there's obviously 1 as a float time. Can you see that? Because they could have started at 9, or they could start at 10, and it doesn't matter. They would still finish by 12. Okay, so 9 plus the 2, because the weight of E is 2. So the duration, they would have got either finished at 11, which is early, or they could start at 10, and they still finish exactly on time. So that's why I know the float time is based on the difference between the earliest starting time and the latest starting time, which I just did 10 minus 9 equals 1. Okay, moving on to question E. What is the duration of activity A? Well, I happen to have already figured it out as I was doing some explanation there, but you can see I've figured it out that it had to be 3. Okay, so the duration of activity A had to be 3. So I'm going to fill out there. And then what is the duration of activity D? Well, we've also figured it out through inspection before. It had to be 9. Okay, and that finishes off question 3. So it looks tricky, but you can see that it's really not. And I do like to draw the boxes so it's clearer for me on what I'm actually doing. But later on, you don't have to. You can literally just look at the networks and then kind of figure out what the value should be.